everybody, from Beantown to your town. This is the Beantown Beatdown, and we are live from my boy Gabe's place.
It's my place in Belmont.
Yeah, that's right.
Also in Boston. We're kind of him and I. We're kind of both on the opposite ends of the spectrum of what you consider the Boston area. So I'm all the way up north. He's all the way down south.
Yep.
So we're up north today.
Yep, we're up north, and it's been a while since we've done our podcast. You know, snow, colds, and
Going out of town, things
Yep.
like that. Yeah.
So now we're here for the special edition of our show, the top 25 unsung heroes of boxing. And first, we're gonna get started with some Apple Rita.
You're awesome.
Yeah, actually I did drink during the Super Bowl. Go Pats!
Very good.
And so my mom let me drink this week again. I had some Apple Ritas for the Glory Kickboxing event on Spike last night, and I figured I'd save the next three for the show today.
All right. Sweet.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Yep. All right. Let's get to it. Right down here. At number 25, Trevor Berbick, member of the 1976 Olympic team in Canada, did fight Larry Holmes and Muhammad Ali. He was actually Muhammad Ali's last opponent before Ali retired in 81. Did fight Larry Holmes for the title and lost. Eventually did win the heavyweight title, and his first defense, as we all know, he got knocked out by Mike Tyson back in 86. Yep.
So the beginning, bringing it home.
Yep, bringing it. Yep, that was the beginning. And that was when Trevor Berbick, after the second time he went down, he kept getting up and going down, because he was so dazed from the punch. Yeah, still a great memory in everyone's mind. And, of course, he's also famous because there's a famous YouTube video, I'm sure you've seen it, where he was outside of a parking lot with Larry Holmes. Him and Larry Holmes had gotten some kind of altercation. And then out of nowhere, as he's talking about Larry Holmes punched me and kicked me, Larry Holmes jumps off the hood of a car and lands a drop kick a la Rey Mysterio.
Oh, no.
Yeah, right on it. So unfortunately, that's what Trevor Berbick will always be known for. And sadly, he was sadly killed by his cousin in, I think, 2005.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so that's tragic.
Yeah.
Number 24 is Montel Griffin, former light heavyweight champion. His claim to fame was 2 victories over James Toney, and then he had the first fight with Roy Jones Jr., and I actually remember this fight because I saw it on HBO when I was a kid. And this is when Roy Jones was the shed. Everyone thought Roy Jones was unbeatable, and Montel was actually winning the fight until Jones knocked him down, and then Jones made the mistake of hitting him when he had one knee on the ground, and Griffin won by disqualification. And then they had the rematch, and Roy Jones beat him. Montel Griffin later on went on to fight for another light heavyweight title, and he lost to Chad Dawson, and then eventually just retired. Kind of a shame, especially when he beat James Toney, when James Toney was still at his prime too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I do remember that fight. That was a good fight.
What year was that again?
I think that was 90, 96, 97.
Okay.
My memory serves me well. And number 23 is Boston's own Irish Mickey Ward.
Here we go.
Yeah, Mickey Ward from The Fighter. I actually finally saw the DVD. I finally saw the movie. I got the movie a couple of weeks ago, and something I've seen bits and clips, but I've always wanted to get my hands on it.
You wanted to get around to watching it.
Yeah, good job by Marky Mark. And Mickey Ward, of course, famous for the Arturo Gatti fights, parts 1, 2, and 3, and really one of the best boxers to come out of Boston, along with Tony DeMarco, Rocky Marciano, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and John Ruiz.
We talked about another time how we have a bunch. We have a bunch that come out of Beantown, which is pretty cool, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a pretty good number of good fighters coming out of Boston, and Mickey Ward was one of them. Never became a world champion. I mean, he won lineal titles, but never a world title. But his fights with Arturo Gatti, tremendous.
Right. So that's why you have him on the unsung list.
Yeah, unsung. Yeah.
Even though it seems like he's more well known than perhaps the others on your list.
Yeah. Well, there's more to come. Just wait and see.
Yep.
Number 22 is Jimmy Ellis. Jimmy Ellis, as an amateur, fought Muhammad Ali back when Ali was known as Cassius Clay. Ellis beat him the first time, and Ellis beat him the first time, and Ali beat him the second time. And then eventually he trained with Angela Dundee, actually became a sparring partners of Ali's, and then he became heavyweight champion of the world when Ali's title was vacant, and of course eventually lost it by getting knocked out by, well, not knocked out, but TKO'd by Smoking Joe Frazier. He fought Ali, and then of course he lost. He fought Lau, whatever his name is. Sorry, escapes me at the moment. But he fought for a while, and then retired in around 79, and actually died last year of dementia in May of 2014.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and when he fought Ali, Angelo Dundee, believe it or not, was in the corner of Jimmy Ellis, because Dundee was Ali's main man, and then because the two were fighting, Angelo decided to work in Jimmy's corner. So. Okay. Yeah, so that was one of the rare times that Ali fought without having Dundee in his corner.
Very interesting there.
Yeah. And number 21, Davey Moore. Talked a little bit about him when we were talking about Roberto Duran, because that was the fight where when he fought Roberto Duran for the junior middleweight title, and he was like 8-0 at that time, and hadn't really had much experience. As champion. In fact, it was a brutal beating Davey Moore got. In fact, it was so brutal that his fiance at the time and his mother both fainted at ringside in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah.
That's when you know it's bad, right?
Yes, and of course, let's keep in mind, there's a reason why Roberto Duran was called Manos de Piedra, the hands of stone. So, eventually Moore did fight for a title again, but he didn't win, and of course lost his life in a car accident. And then actually grew up in the Bronx, trained in the Bronx with Iron Barkley, and Barkley would eventually fight Duran in 1989 for the middleweight title, and Duran would eventually be Iron Barkley. Weird coincidence there.
Fascinating.
Yes. Number 20 is Floyd Mayweather Sr., the father of Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Sr., he only had one big fight as a fighter during his fighting career, and that was with Sugar Ray Leonard, and that was Ray was still very popular coming off the 76 Olympic team, but at that time he hadn't gotten a title shot, and he was still being built up and stuff. He was actually a main eventer before he had his first world title fight.
Oh, okay.
And he gave Floyd Mayweather Sr. a boxing lesson. And eventually Mayweather got into drugs and alcohol, and that kind of derailed his pro career. And eventually wound up as a trainer, wound up training not only his son Floyd Jr., but he trained Oscar De La Hoya and Ricky Hatton. Yeah, and he's much known now as a trainer than a boxer.
Right.
Yeah, of course his brother is Roger Mayweather, the Black Mamba, who was a former super featherweight and former lightweight champion, and Roger's a trainer as well for Floyd Jr. as well. Right. But out of everyone in the Mayweather family, both Floyd Jr. and Roger are the most famous ones. Yeah.
So it's kind of like the senior he's passing on the torch for the family and whatnot, through the family and whatnot.
Yeah, and also they have another brother. Floyd Sr.'s other brother is Jeff Mayweather, who fought Oscar De La Hoya when Oscar was 8-0, and he never became really big. But he eventually became a trainer, and he also trains some MMA fighters too.
Okay.
In boxing, he's a boxing coach for them. Number 19 is Freddie Roach, who is also another Beantown boy.
Beantown boy.
Yeah, he was a boxer himself, him and his brothers. He actually trained under Eddie Futch, who trained Ken Norton, Joe Frazier, and eventually Riddick Bowe. With Freddie Roach, he never became a big time boxer. I mean, he was known for some fights. He had some fights with Greg Hagen, Bobby Chacon, and Hector Macho Camacho, but then eventually retired and became well known as a trainer, training Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., training Hector Macho Camacho Jr. I think. No, wait, not him, but Miguel Cotto. He did train. He did train Mike Tyson for a bit and trained Michael Moore for a while, and of course he's now the trainer of Manny Pacquiao. Yeah, yeah. He even trained De La Hoya for a bit too. So he's I mean, as a boxer, didn't really reach the heights, but as a trainer, he's well known.
Right.
Number 18, Chuck Webner. Of course, everyone knows that's the one who is one of many inspirations for the movie Rocky. Yep, he fought Muhammad Ali, went 15 rounds with Ali, and then Ali eventually TKO'd him. And actually, Webner actually knocked Ali down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was being dubbed as the Great White Hope and trying to go to distance with Ali. That's where the storyline of Rocky going to distance with Apollo Creed came from.
Okay. That's fascinating. So that's definitely in the boxing history and whatnot.
Yeah. Eventually, Webner actually wound up suing Stallone, saying about like copyrights or whatever. There's some kind of lawsuit. And was kind of a shame that the situation ended like that because Chuck Webner was again one of the inspirations for the movie and stuff, and he's kind of part of movie history. Went on fighting, eventually retired, and you see him nowadays. He makes occasional appearances on TV and stuff.
Right. Well, I am fascinated by how like the movies intersect and things like that, like where how this has to do with the inspiration for the movies, and my rant is going to go into a little bit of that. So.
Sure. All right. Number 17, Burt Cooper, fighter out of Philadelphia. In the 90s, he was known for having a lot of wild brawls. Like he brawled with Holyfield for the title during Holyfield's first title reign. Actually knocked him down, and eventually Holyfield came back and won it in the 7th.
Knocked down Holyfield.
Yeah, and then he had a brawl with Michael Moore when Michael Moore moved up to heavyweight, fought for the WBO for the WBO heavyweight title, and actually they knocked each other down like a total 4 times actually.
Really?
Yeah, he actually knocked out Michael Moore twice down in the first round. Yeah, I mean that's a brutal fight. Look it up on YouTube.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And Burt Cooper, of course, never rose to the ranks as champion. He was kind of known as being a wild brawler and putting on good fights, but never became a champion. In fact, there's one highlight of him where he knocked the guy out. He hit a guy with an uppercut, bam, and the guy went down to one knee, and his nose was bleeding. Like blood was actually dripping from the nose.
I've had that, yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. I mean that was just amazing. Yeah, another good fighter coming out of Philadelphia. Number 16, John the Beast Mugabe. Mugabe, former middleweight and junior middleweight champion. Unfortunately, he's only known for his losses to Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He was Hagler's last fight before Hagler fought Leonard. Took Hagler to 15 rounds, and Hagler eventually destroyed him. That was actually the first boxing fight on Showtime. Because around that time, most of the boxing matches were on HBO. HBO was the king.
Right.
And then Showtime started getting into it. And then Mugabe lost to terrible Terry Norris, another great fighter, and Norris knocked him out. So, unfortunately, even though he is a former world champion, those are the only fights he's really known for.
I see.
Yeah. Number 15, Wilfred Benitez. I talked about him and about his fight with Tommy Hearns. Good fighter out of Puerto Rico, became a champion. At the welterweight division, only had one successful title defense, and then eventually he lost to Sugar Ray Leonard. He won the junior middleweight title, and then he lost. He actually defended it against Roberto Duran, beat Roberto Duran in a 15-round decision, and then lost a 15-round decision to Tommy Hearns. Kept on fighting for a while, and then he started losing some fights, and then eventually retired, and still alive today, and still in Puerto Rico. In fact, he was actually at Hector Macho Camacho's funeral.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when Camacho died. Yeah, and Benitez, he actually told Ray Leonard that when Ray came to visit him and stuff, he said like he didn't train for that fight, and he also said like he was on drugs, I think. Yeah.
Oh, so he's trying to trash talk him down.
Yeah. No, not trash talking him down. Just telling him why he lost.
Right. No, what's the word? He was trying to say that he should have been disqualified or something.
Yeah. No. I mean,
why else would you say you're on drugs and
Yeah.
tell people that they shouldn't have won?
Yeah. Well, I guess it was his admission of guilt or whatever.
Right.
Whatever. But still, another great Puerto Rican fighter. Still. Number 14, Buddy McGirt, former super lightweight champion. Better known as a trainer than a fighter. He did eventually lose to Meldrick Taylor, another fighter out of Philadelphia. And Buddy McGirt went on to become a trainer, trained a lot of fighters, including Arturo Gatti when Gatti was going into the fights with Mickey Ward.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those 3 fights, and trained him, became world champion, and then when Arturo was going on the downside, Buddy was trying to convince him to quit, to retire, and say, hey, listen, don't mess with your legacy, retire. You're going to be in the Hall of Fame. And Gotti was like, no, I still got some more into me. I want to be champion again. And then Buddy and Arturo, they parted ways. Didn't speak to each other for a while, which is unfortunate.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't like an angry thing. It was just more like, oh, okay, he goes his way, I'm gonna go my way, and wish you all the best.
Right. Yeah.
That's eventually how it went.
Mm-hmm.
Number 13 is Howard Davis Jr. Howard Davis Jr. not only an unsung hero in boxing, but also an unsung hero in the 76 Olympic boxing team. Michael Spinks and his brother Leon and Sugar Ray, they went on to become world champions. Howard Davis is the only one from that team that did not become a world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he fought for the title numerous times and failed. He lost. Did make a comeback in '94, but then eventually went back into retirement. Kind of a shame, because he was part of that great, Olympic team, won a gold medal. It seemed like the skies was the limit for that guy.
Yeah.
Skies was the limit for all those fighters. And eventually retired and actually became a MMA boxing coach. Training MMA fighters in boxing. Worked with Chuck Liddell and worked with some other fighters at Jackson's MMA in Albuquerque and also at American Top Team.
Yeah.
Yeah, still works at American Top Team. So if you're ever down in Coconut Creek, Florida, where the gym is located at, go find Howard Davis Jr. He can help you with your boxing skills. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. And number 12 is Razor Ruddock.
Let's see. Were you gonna break these up with your rant, by the way?
Huh? No, I'm not doing the rant. You're doing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you had a rant. I was about to say it'd be good to throw it in here.
No. Number 12, Razor Ruddock. Good heavyweight. Of course, had 2 fights with Mike Tyson. He was Mike Tyson's last 2 fights before Tyson went to jail for the rape conviction, which was bullshit. And the first fight he had with Tyson felt it was stopped prematurely by Richard Steele, and then they had a second fight which went to distance, and Ruddock lost on a decision, and his face looked like he got hit with a Mack truck. I mean, he had like a swollen eye, a broken jaw, and stuff. I mean, he really did look like a mess.
Jesus, man.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, of course he fought Lennox Lewis He lost to him, lost to Tommy Morrison, went on to fight and then eventually retired and still lives in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Yeah.
Okay.
Number 11, Hasim Rahman. Hakeem Rockman was a good heavyweight. Did knock out Lennox Lewis for the heavyweight title, and then when they were having their rematch, they were talking to each other on Sports Center, and Hakeem Rockman was calling him gay and stuff like that, and then they got into a scuffle right there. They were like wrestling each other, grabbing and pushing each other, and actually knocked over a desk over at Sports Center.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My.
Yeah. And eventually, Rotman, he lost the title to Lennox Lewis in the rematch, which would set up the Lewis versus Tyson fight. And Rotman did become champion again when the WBC title was vacated, but then he lost the title, went on and fought for a while, and eventually retired. So he's a one-fight wonder.
What year was that they had that brawl at Sports Center?
Around 2001.
Oh, okay.
2001.
I was wondering, do you think that happens anymore, where they
they still
trash talk each other with homophobic specifically stuff?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, the fight world's not really politically correct. Not that I condone it, but it's
Right.
It's the way the ball bounces. Unfortunately.
That's a phrase, yes.
Yeah. Number 10 is Donnie Lalonde. Talked a little bit about him when we were talking about Sugar Ray Leonard. Donnie Lalonde, fighter out of Canada. He was the light heavyweight champion. His manager was Dick Wolf, who also managed Ray Boo Boo Mancini.
Mm-hmm.
Actually trained with Teddy Atlas after Atlas left Tyson.
Okay.
And then he got with a new trainer. He left Teddy, and then he fought Sugar Ray Leonard for the super middleweight WBC title and the WBC light heavyweight title. And he lost to Leonard, even though he knocked him down in the early rounds. And Leonard came back and eventually won the fight. And Donnie Lalonde was in and out of retirement because he was known for having this bad left shoulder. So he couldn't really throw a hook. He would have to hook like he would throw a jab, just something like that. Did fight Bobby Sanchez, then lost he lost that fight, and then eventually retired, and now he's part of a boxing program to help boxers get off their feet in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yep. And number. We already said number 10. Number 9 is, of course, James Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas, as we all know, is the guy who knocked out Mike Tyson, gave Mike Tyson his first loss in Tokyo, Japan. And at that time, Tyson, Tyson's career was kind of his personal life was sort of a mess. He was divorced from Robin Givens. Jimmy Jacobs, one of his manager, Jimmy Jacobs, had died. He left Clayton and went with Don King. Rooney, his trainer, left and replaced him with Aaron Snow and Jay Bright. And in that fight, even though Tyson had won two fights after he left Rooney, that fight with Douglas, that wasn't the same Tyson, man. Buster Douglas really gave him a boxing lesson, and he actually shocked the world, and actually did it right after his mom died.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
before the fight, his mother had died, and that's what brought him into the fight. Yeah, it gave him that encouragement, and he beat Mike Tyson. Lost the title in his first title defense against Holyfield. Left, then went into a coma, and then he got back into boxing around 96. I actually saw his first fight back on pay-per-view, which was on the undercard of Camacho versus Duran. And went on and fought for a while and eventually retired, and still he's part of boxing history forever. Yeah, knocked out the baddest man on the planet at that time.
That's been a shockwave.
Yeah. Number 8 is Meldrick Taylor. Meldrick Taylor, a fighter out of Philadelphia, as I mentioned before. Part of the '84 Olympic team with Pernell Whitaker and Vander Holyfield. Won the super lightweight title, and lost that to Julio Cesar Chavez in 1990, which was dubbed the Fight of the Year. Yeah, and he lost it in the closing rounds too.
Really?
In the 12th round going into it, he was a little exhausted and beaten up, and all he had to do was just stay on his feet, and then bam, he got knocked down. And even though he got up, the referee waved it off. Yeah. And yeah, he suffered badly after that fight, man. He had black eyes. He had facial damage, tissue. He was pissing. He was pissing blood from kidney damage. Yeah. So after that fight, he he went on to fight more, won some titles. Actually, rematched Chavez in '94, and then lost, and continued on fighting, and eventually became punch drunk and got some brain damage, and eventually retired. Yeah, so it was unfortunate. He was at one point he was considered like the next Sugar Ray Leonard too.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was sad.
Too bad.
Yeah, really sad. Number 7, Frank Bruno, heavyweight contender out of England. Actually, he did spar one time with Mike Tyson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. And then eventually he fought Tyson in '89. He was Tyson's first fight after Michael Spinks, and then after leaving Kevin Rooney and stuff. And yeah, Tyson won by TKO in the 5th round, just demolished him. Bruno went on to keep on fighting. He fought Lennox Lewis. He lost. He beat Oliver McCall for the WBC title, won. And then in his first title defense, he has a rematch with Tyson. And Tyson destroys him in 2 rounds. Actually broke his eye socket.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and
really?
it broke his eye socket. And that's what led to Bruno retiring. Even after his eye socket recovered and all, in fear of further damaging it, he retired.
Right.
Still lives in it. Yeah, he retires. Wrote an autobiography in England, and still lives in England. Yep, still lives in England. Number 6, Tommy Morrison, aka Tommy Gunn, for all you who watched Rocky V.
Tommy Gunn.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you saw it? You saw the movie?
Yeah, a long time ago, like forever ago.
Yeah, Tommy Morrison. He's actually related to John Wayne.
Oh.
Yeah, John Wayne was his uncle. Grew up in Oklahoma. Fought Ray Mercer in the '88 Olympic trials and lost. And he was actually managed by Clayton for a while when Clayton parted ways with Tyson. And went on and fought. He fought Ray Mercer for the WBO title, and Mercer knocked him the fuck out. And then Morrison eventually won the WBO title. He had a big fight with George Foreman and continued. He was actually supposed to be Tyson's first fight when Tyson got out of jail.
Oh, yeah.
And then he got stuck. Then the news came that he had HIV. Did fight on for a little bit. Actually lost to Lennox Lewis for the title. He retired for a while, and then he came back claiming that the diagnosis was wrong, that he didn't have HIV. And eventually wanted to get back. He wanted to get into mixed martial arts, but never happened. And finally, he passed away.
So wait, I mean that would have stopped him from fighting Tyson?
Well, yeah, because with HIV in the blood, if a fighter bleeds and stuff like that,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was really unfortunate. He was, he did a lot better than Jerry Cooney. At least he became a world champion and stuff. And kind of a shame. He was kind of known for only the Rocky movie, and
right.
But he did. But he really was a good fighter, good contender. Had he reached his full potential.
Totally.
Yeah. Number 5, Oliver McCall. Oliver McCall from Chicago, another heavyweight fighter, was actually a sparring partner for Tyson. And there's actually a YouTube video where he was sparring hard with Tyson, and he quit.
He quit?
Yeah, he quit. He did eventually train with Joe Frazier's group in Philadelphia, and he beat Lennox Lewis. He actually knocked him out with one punch. And Bert Sugar said it best. He closed his eyes, threw a punch, and then when he opened up his eyes, he was heavyweight champion of the world. Yep. And eventually he got into drugs, cocaine, and stuff, and then had the rematch with Lewis when the WBC title was vacated. And that fight, that was the fight where he was like walking away, and then he was crying. He had really suffered a mental breakdown in that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember watching that fight. I was like, what? As a kid, I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, he really had suffered a mental breakdown, and he's been clean and sober for a while now. And actually, I heard he still fights, which is unfortunate. That guy should have been retired. Yeah. Number 4, Michael Moore, as I mentioned before. Michael Moore from Pennsylvania moved to Detroit, Michigan, trained at the Kronk Gym, became light heavyweight champion. Trained with Emmanuel Stewart, and then after that wild brawl with Michael Cooper, he parted ways with Stewart. Trained with the Duvas for a while, and then eventually wound up with Teddy Atlas, and that's when he won the heavyweight title from Evander Holyfield. And then he lost. Then of course he loses the title to George Foreman. That's when George Foreman had that knockout, and 45 years old, becoming heavyweight champion of the world. Regained the IBF title back, beating Alex Schultz. Francis Botha. And defended the title twice, and then parted ways with Teddy Atlas. Him and Teddy had a falling out.
Okay. Yeah.
And then he lost the rematch to Evander. That was Evander's first fight after the Tyson ear-biting incident.
No.
And knocked out Michael Moore 5 times in the fight. Yeah, knocked him down 5 times, and then Moore took some time off, and then he came back. He actually got knocked out by David Tua, and continued on fighting, and then eventually retired. It's kind of a shame, too, because Michael Moore was one of... I would have loved to see Michael Moore and Tyson, or Michael Moore and Lennox Lewis. I mean...
Right, yeah.
Even though I think...
names, yeah.
Yeah, even though I think Tyson... Tyson would have knocked him the fuck out. But against Lennox, he would have made a great opponent for Lennox Lewis. Yeah, kind of a shame what happened to his career.
Totally.
Yeah. Number 3 is Riddick Big Daddy Bo.
Big Daddy Bo.
Yep, Big Daddy Bo from Brooklyn, New York City. Yep, from New York City. Actually went to high school with Mike Tyson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in fact, when he beat Evander Holyfield for the heavyweight title, he actually dedicated the fight to Tyson when Tyson was in prison. Yep, he was part of the '88 Olympic team. Lost in the finals to Lennox Lewis and wound up with a silver medal.
Oh, wow.
And Bo, he fought Evander Holyfield 3 times. Bo won the first fight. He lost the second fight. That's when the second fight was with the Fan Man, where the guy came in on a parachute helicopter, trying to fly into the ring.
Oh, really? Like...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then they fought years later. The third fight, Bo beat Holyfield. And then he had 2 fights with Andrew Galata. Those were the fights where Galata kept repeatedly hitting him in the nuts. Yeah, especially the first one in Madison Square Garden, where they had that riot between the trainers and the fans, and it was just a big melee. I remember seeing that as a kid too.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, on HBO, and I was like, whoa, crazy. But Riddick Bowe, he had suffered a lot of brain damage from those fights, and eventually he tried to go into the Marines. That didn't work out. Retired for a bit, then he came back to boxing for a bit. Tried his hands at MMA, that didn't work, and now he's he's going into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Yeah, which is good.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's always known for those 3 fights with Evander Holyfield. Too bad his career didn't reach the same heights as Holyfield or any of the other heavyweights, but
right.
But still remembered as a great champion and great fighter. Okay. Yeah. Number 2 is Jerry Looney Cooney. Jerry Cooney. From New York City, Irish Jerry Cooney. He fought Larry Holmes for the heavyweight title. Larry Holmes at the time was the champion, but after Muhammad Ali, people thought he was a bit of an Ali wannabe and wasn't really as appreciated as Ali. And of course, the major part of the fight was unfortunately because Jerry Cooney was white. Everyone was calling Jerry Cooney the Big White Hope and stuff like that.
Right.
And Jerry Cooney, he hadn't really fought any big names before Holmes except for Ken Norton. But by that time, Ken Norton was just a shell of his former self. That wasn't the Ken Norton that fought Ali 3 times and fought Foreman and fought Larry Holmes. That wasn't the same Ken Norton.
I see. Yeah.
And Cooney, he got TKO later in that fight, and eventually he did fight for the title again against Michael Spinks, and Michael Spinks beat him. He went into retirement, fell into drugs and alcohol, got back into fighting. He tried to have one big comeback fight against George Foreman, and Foreman knocked him out, and he went back into retirement. And now Cooney is clean and sober, and he's actually now friends with Larry Holmes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they've become friends since then, and Cooney's part of a nonprofit organization that helps fighters after boxing, land on their feet and stuff.
Sweet. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's good. And finally, number one. The number one fighter is, drum roll please, Leon Spinks. Yep, Leon Spinks, 1976 Olympic gold medalist, along with his brother Michael and Sugar Ray Leonard and Howard Davis.
Yeah.
And he had 8 fights before he fought Muhammad Ali and pulled off the upset, beating Ali in '78 in Las Vegas. And I actually read the book on both him and his brother. The book on the Spinks brothers. And eventually, Leon Spinks lost the title to Ali in the rematch. He kept on fighting and actually fought Larry Holmes for the title, and Larry Holmes beat him. And Leon Spinks was just like, he was on drugs and alcohol, continued fighting, even when he was way past his prime. And of course, he retired. His brother Michael later went on to become a great light heavyweight champion. Then he beat Larry Holmes twice for the heavyweight title, and then retired after getting knocked out by Tyson. And Leon's son, Corey Spinks, went on to be a world champion in boxing as well, before Corey eventually retired as well. So, the Spinks brothers are still pretty known in boxing. Another great family in boxing, just like the Mayweathers.
Right.
And Leon, to this day, I actually saw a documentary called Facing Ali, where they talked about all the past opponents who fought Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And Leon, he was working like in a program to help people with poor people. I think he was part of that program, and it's kind of a shame what happened to him. Being so young, being heavyweight champion, and to see where he is now. It was a shame. But for that moment in time when he beat Ali, he was really famous. In fact, he was known for having these two front teeth here out. And there's a picture of him.
He's the one who has like the gap and whatnot.
Yeah, in Sports Illustrated, there's a famous picture of him with the two teeth missing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the Spinks family have never been known to have good teeth.
Trademark.
Yeah. So that's it. My top 25 of unsung heroes of boxing.
Top 25.
Yeah, how much time we got? Oh, it says we got 37 minutes. Oh, we've
been on for 37 minutes.
Yeah, we've been on for 37 minutes.
So yeah, we still have quite some time.
Yeah,
but we can go on to my rant over here. Turn on the lights here.
Yeah.
It's getting a little dark, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so speaking of unsung heroes, you've had a great list there, and I'm gonna sort of take that theme. I'm gonna go with that theme a little bit more here, and so you know about like the circumstances and the fights and whatnot. I'm sort of thinking about what makes an unsung hero and why they do or don't make it and whatnot. And I sort of think about their personalities and things like that. Like we sort of acknowledge in regular sports that that the players need to have a little bit more personality, a little bit more something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's always kind of hard to define what that little more something is. And so like some people are not so good at the whole in front of the camera thing, and being a likable person. They just want to get on the field or get on the court or whatever it is. My favorite example from just like a few weeks ago is who was it from the Seahawks?
Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, exactly. Lynch is there at the media day. He hates going to the media day thing. You can tell, and he literally has just given up and is like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna tell them the absolute, dumbest truth, which is I'm just here so I won't get fined.
Yeah.
And he says that, I heard on the radio, he said that like 29 times.
Yeah.
So anyway, stuff like that. He clearly he's great on the football field, but it's he doesn't want to be the type of person that has to go to the media events. So I think that that might happen a lot. That might be something that the really great players are kind of struggle with. And so I think there's the same sort of dynamic, and you might even call it a double standard that we deal with fighters. They have to not just be great in the ring, but have an extra something to be remembered by. And so I don't know all the circumstances of the guys on your list, but I think a lot of them that might have been part of it. They weren't always so great with the with the crowd after the fight. And I think of like I said I was going to talk about movies a little bit. I think of some of the great boxing movies. The thing that really comes to my mind with this is actually probably something you guys wouldn't expect, is actually the Hunger Games. In the Hunger Games, Katniss has to fight to the death, and it's a very strange, weird society. There, everything is built around these games where it's like an actual fake world that they made for them to fight in the death in, and you go there's rugged obstacles and like actual forest and terrain and stuff. And the thing that one of the biggest scenes is when they're talking with what's his name, Mayhew, who's their guardian or whatever, their trainer, and he's just pissed off with the whole thing, and he's drinking the whole time. But he's finally like, you know what you have to do to stay alive? You have to get them to like you. And it's like, not what you expected, is it? And it's true. That's kind of not what we expect when we think of how fighters, for instance, have to advance. But I think it's similar. And anyway, so there's the scene where she has to try and make her mark, and she has to try and be remembered by the judges. And so she's almost dead, just not because of the other kids in the forest that are going to kill her, but she's almost dead when she tries to do her evaluation, because she's about to be not remembered. And as they're like stop looking at her and are talking amongst themselves, they bring in a pig with an apple in its mouth. Favorite scene is that she then pulls the arrow towards their own pig, and then whoosh, and boom, right into the apple in the pig's mouth. And so, that's what gets her an 11 out of 10, which has never happened before.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of my favorite scenes in the whole thing. So anyway, what that proves is, that it wasn't what she did off the court, shall we say, out of the terrain, was actually more important. And if she wasn't able to pull that off, if she wasn't able to be remembered, she would have been dead, just as badly as she would have been dead by the other kids in the terrain. So I sort of think that's kind of where it happens, where we go with these fighters, is that they can do a good thing in the ring, but then what happens afterwards? Do they get the audience pumped? Can they get I don't know if they really do post-game interviews or whatever.
Yeah, they do interviews.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. If they still do interviews, then it's the same type of thing. Can they do a good interview, or are they just going to be like Lynch, trying to get out of it? So I think that's an interesting sort of thing, and I think that's just another factor in what happens in the lives of these fighters. It's pretty important, I guess.
Well, yeah, it is. Because you do have to talk at the press conferences, leading up to the fights, and that's the one that's most anticipated, especially when it's two fighters who really don't get along with each other.
Right. Exactly. I bet.
Yeah.
So I guess there's sort of think we should wonder about that a little bit more. Also, like, are we? It's not just the sort of endurance in the ring. What else are we asking of these fighters to do? And I think that's one of the...
Yeah, because and also to live up to the hype too.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Like I said about Jerry Cooney. Like Jerry Cooney. I mean, yeah, he was a good body puncher and stuff like that, but I guess to put in terms, because we're in Boston here, it's kind of like with Larry Bird. I don't know if you remember, but there was after Larry Bird and the Celtics beat the Pistons in '87.
Yes, I've heard
Dennis Rodman and Isaiah Thomas. They said the only reason why Larry Bird is so they said he's a good player, but the only reason why he's so why people like him so much is because he's white.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with Jerry Cooney, because at that time, the last great white heavyweight champion was Rocky Marciano, and Jerry Cooney was given the Great White Hope. I mean, he wasn't really thinking about it. He was just thinking hey, I'm just gonna go fight the heavyweight champion, and I'm just gonna win and go out there and fight.
Right.
But for the rest of the to the white people, it's like, oh, we got a white Irish fighter, and he's fighting a black heavyweight champion, and by that time in the 70s, by the 60s and the 70s, in terms of racist white people, it was getting a bit too dark. Hey, that's the thing.
That's the thing.
When blacks start dominating sports, then the whites are gonna be like, right. It's getting a little dark in here.
Right.
And Jerry Cooney was the Great White Hope. And
that's a good point. That's also a hype. That was a hype that was given to him, and could he live up to that or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And it made it. And it did kind of make it hard for white heavyweights. I mean, of course, now we have the Klitschko brothers. I mean, they're from Russia. They're Eastern European. I mean, still considered white.
Yeah, I was about to say.
There hasn't been. Okay, I guess there hasn't been a white American heavyweight champion in a long time.
Right.
We got a white Eastern European heavyweight champion in Vladimir Klitschko, but we don't have a white American heavyweight champion right now. And with Jerry Cooney, I mean, like I said, he really just fought some club fighters and stuff. I mean, even though he had beat Ken Norton, that wasn't the Ken Norton. It's like, that's just one of those fights where you look at it when a great fighter, when he loses a fight, that's not the same him. That's not the same person. Like when you,
right.
Like when you see Ali fight Larry Holmes, you're like, that's not the real Muhammad Ali. The real Muhammad Ali would whoop Larry Holmes. Or like when you look at, Sugar Ray Leonard and Terry Norris, back in '91, you're like, Sugar Ray Leonard, in his prime beats Terry Norris, and also touching on what you said about comparing it to movies and stuff, people can feel it, especially with with the Rocky movies and the movie, The Fighter, and then there's the mixed martial arts movie, Warrior. It's like underdog. The fighter that's that's an underdog, and he's he's not the type of fighter that that's rolling around in a Rolls Royce. He's kind of he's a blue collar guy. Especially growing up here in Boston. That's why it reflects not only our fighters but our sports teams, because
a lot of our sports teams also blue collar.
Yeah, we're blue collar guys. We put on our hard hats and
carry our lunch pails.
Lunch pails. The wives make the sandwiches and stuff, and we go out to work.
Right.
Unlike you Californians.
Here we go.
The Hollywood stars, Britney Spears, and
I'm Northern California. First of all, we aren't in Hollywood. We're far from it, but
you're from the Bay.
Yeah, exactly. but yeah, even so, a lot of if you go to Oakland, very working class over there. But, but yeah, I guess I'll take that for Bay Area. Sometimes we're a little bit removed, but yeah, no, I mean it's like that. It's like they sometimes you don't even have control of the story that you're telling. They're telling a working class story, which is great, which is what we need, and that's why we root for them. But it's also like it's not like they're necessarily planning that, and how do they live up to that or not? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially with with Marvin Hagler. He was working construction and while boxing too, and
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually started winning some fights and started getting known, and later on became a great champion. And especially with the Rocky fight Rocky movies. Of course, I also looked this up on an article they did on the Rocky movies. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
fights aren't necessarily realistic to boxing. I mean, because like
Right.
if you look at Rocky 4 when Rocky was fighting the Russian, I mean, by round 2 that fight would have been stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because especially the way after Drago killed Apollo, it's
Mm-hmm.
like during the second round that fight would have been stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean the fights may not and the movies may not be as realistic to boxing. I mean, I understand because it has to be for entertaining purposes, and you
Yeah.
don't want the audience walking out of the theater going, give me back my money." But like I said, it's the underdog thing, and that's why we love those kind of movies. And you can also see it in those underground street fight movies from back in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
With the
Yeah.
Jean Claude Van Damme and stuff
Right.
like that.
Right.
Like in
Exactly.
Lionheart, when Van Damme was in Lionheart, he was fighting for his brother's widow and his daughter. He wasn't fighting to make money or anything. He was fighting for money, but it was for his brother's wife and kids.
Right.
Not for himself.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he was in those underground street fights.
That's fascinating. Yeah, and oh yeah, I guess that was the other thing I was going to bring. Reason I was bringing movies into this as well is that I think it's like we demand as much from our fighters and from our our sports stars as we do from.
That's me.
There you go.
Sorry.
As we do from our actors. I think that's what I was trying to get at. And with acting, you call it the X factor. Do they have something extra besides all the other stuff that they're supposed to have? And I think we sort of, whether or not we have a word for it, we look for that in our fighters.
Yeah, and especially because the actors go through it too. Go through
Yeah.
that process of training when they go when they're
Exactly.
portraying a fighter. I mean, look at Stallone. I mean,
Mhm.
you look at Rock. I mean, I was looking at behind the scenes of Rocky Balboa. The last Rocky film,
Right.
and he really did put him. He was really putting himself through the trenches again.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, he's not exactly. He may not be a spring chicken, but he can still. He still looks good for. He still looks good for his age, and he can. He had to pull it off, and it was even hard for Marky when he did the fighter because
Mhm.
for 4 years that movie was on again, off again. Was it going to be made or not? And he was still in training, and in between
Right.
films, he was working, boxing and skipping ropes, working with Dickie and Mickey and all his other boxing trainers. And
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, and he even said so in the 60 Minutes interview. He said, I didn't want to look like an actor who could play a boxer. I want to look like someone who could fight for the world title.
Right.
And you can see in the fighter, man, he got in great shape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's still in good shape. I mean, that guy's a genetic freak. I mean, I don't know what. I mean,
Right.
Calvin Klein. Calvin Klein should call him back. Be like, hey, Marky, remember those back in the day when we had you do those underwear ads? Maybe we could do something like that again.
Right. Exactly. He still would have it. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Exactly. And because it is hard work. Especially for the actors and.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the martial arts actors. I mean,
Right.
thank God now we have these Blu-rays and DVDs, and you see the behind-the-scenes look and what the actors have to go through. And especially with like with the Batman movie, the Batman Begins. Christian Bale put himself through that and push-ups and learning this new martial arts style of fighting and going on a strict diet.
Right.
It's not easy. Because especially when you're an actor, you're like.
You have to get yourself into it when you haven't been used to it.
Yes,
these fighters have been training to fight the whole time, whereas actors.
Yeah, they're used to those diets, and as an actor, you're just you're getting when you're getting fit for a role, you're eating rice, you're eating tuna, you're drinking water, and the whole time you're just thinking, oh God, a quad stacker from Burger King would be so good right now.
Right, exactly. Why did I sign up for for some other movie where I didn't have to do this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. So that's all fascinating, and I think that's kind of what makes a hero. We do put them up on a pedestal. I think just like actors, just like sports stars, and do they have that X factor or not? Do they are they able to talk to the press or not? And then of course are they able to do the street stuff as well? I'm sure some of them are better at the personality stuff and had to learn and see if they could survive in the ring. I'm sure there's that as well.
Yeah, for Boston folks, Mickey Ward was a great personality. He was a nice guy, and
right.
Especially when you look at his family life. Seeing his brother, his brother Dickie fought Sugar Ray Leonard, and then he lost, and then eventually went up in drugs. And for Mickey Ward, even though he lost some fights and won some fights, and he was still going through it, he was just a hard nosed guy, and that's why here in Boston, we love him. Plus,
totally.
Especially for the Irish, South Boston,
yeah.
Especially out there in Southie, South Boston, there's known for having a lot of, American Irish, Irish American fighters, and they turn out a lot of great boxers, especially out of Chelsea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, Southie has that Irish sort of maybe gangster type stuff, whereas maybe I'll get people mad at me for this, but I think you also have people from the north end. You get the mix of Irish and Italian there, and that's more cultural. But I think also that's where it's also where we get some good fighters, probably.
Yeah, exactly, and because that's where you get some good fighters. Mixed martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, wherever. It's like there's New York, there's Boston, there's Philadelphia. Pittsburgh, especially California. California back in the 80s was like the mecca of kickboxers, and
right,
so was New Mexico. In fact, if you ever go back to California, and if you go to Burbank, go look up Benny the Jet Urquidez. He still has a gym there in Burbank where the Jay Leno show used to be at, and he trained Joe Rogan. He actually trained Bruce Lee's daughter, Shannon Lee.
Sweet.
Worked with her for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And, there's also there's Texas as well. Texas is starting to attract fights there in San Antonio, especially in the Alamo Dome. But, there are some, Tex-Mex fighters, the Mexicans out of there, and Mexico as well. Well, of course, that's a different country, but in America, we do have some good fighting towns, especially also San Jose, which is which was a mecca for mixed martial arts for a while with the Strike Force promotion and some good fighters out of there, and still has some good fighters out of there as well. So go look that up.
I will. All right, so I think that's a good place to.
Yeah, that's a good place to end it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back next week.
Of course, yep.
And of course, look us up on YouTube, and also you can now look us up on iTunes. We're going to be on iTunes. Yep, starting on iTunes, and we're going to be making some changes, trying to attract some fans, not only right here in our hometown of Boston, but from all over the world, hopefully.
Exactly. Right.
It keeps
with that being said.
From Beantown to your town. This is the Beantown Beatdown. I'm Matthew Burris, along
with Gabe Shamus,
saying Vios con Dios.